And we're back. Johnny McMurray here from the On The Spot podcast. We're here today with a very interesting guest, a good friend, Stephen Looney. Stephen, how are you?
Hi, Johnny. It's great to be here. Good to see you. Almost on 2 feet.
Almost. I just got the one leg at the minute, but my whole career's been like that, so I'm not worried about it.
You getting on okay? It's painful?
Getting on all right. Things are getting better. I'm allowed to put a wee bit of weight to it now, and it's a bit tight with a kid. Do you know what I mean? 2 months.
Sure.
And it's that way, but it's been good. Operation was.
Well, now that you've matured so much, Johnny, and I've known you a long, long time, this is why I thought I'd get you this little jigsaw.
Thank you.
Because you'll have nothing to do in the house except ward off the kids, and you can spend all your time on that. I wish you well in your rehab and recovery, Johnny.
I'm able to send you a picture of this when it's done, but
Great.
it could be. You could be dead.
It's 1,000. It's 1,000 pieces. It's a big one.
Well, there's more chance of me not doing it, Steve.
That's fine.
Honest. But listen here, I appreciate the gifts. Thank you. So listen, it's really interesting to have you on tonight. Obviously, we go back a long time now. You're from the Ormer Road, like
Ormer
myself.
Road, yeah.
Born and raised and all that.
Born in Glengormley, actually, but moved over when I was 7, when I was young enough.
Good.
So, I love the Ormer Road. Brilliant.
Still there now?
Aye, not too far away. Live up at Forestside, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I strayed. I lived a couple of different places in Belfast. Some happy, some not so happy. And I'm back I'm happy where I am, yeah. I love it.
Good. Well, I don't know if anyone knows this, but I call you Stephen off the record Looney. Because anytime we meet each other for a coffee, there's always a wee off the record.
It's usually me saying to you, this is off the record.
Oh, absolutely. This is all on the record just to keep it going. But
I have to be careful here.
You do. Well, Alan's good at cutting stuff out, so we'll not worry about it if it's too Larry. But yes, off the record, we always had a bit of crack, mate. I always enjoyed our conversations. Pretty much just about random crap and football. So
totally. Yeah.
That's the way this is probably going to go, hopefully.
Well, why not? As long as it gets you through the winter.
You're looking vile bronzer. Portugal?
I have been in Portugal. You know, I like going to Portugal, and I was there for 3.5 weeks. I take my laptop over and I do a bit of work there. I'm a part-time digital nomad these days, Johnny.
Good.
Now, the weather was poor. It was very, very wet and windy. Everybody will be delighted to hear that because for the first week or 10 days it was magic, and I was sending photographs, and honestly, see the amount of people that swore at me.
Yeah,
but it's nice to get away. I love it in Portugal.
Nice wee break too.
Yeah.
Takes your mind off football, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think you need to, Johnny. You know, you're a player. Look, you know, when you're young and you're fit. I don't know about you, but I've been working on this game 28, 29 years. Always feel, come towards the end of the season, you're almost burnt out. You know, you're so fatigued. I don't remember many. I'm always working at Irish Cup finals, and I don't remember like huge amounts of a lot of them. You know, many I do though, of course.
There's a few.
Yeah, say my name.
You can talk about it if you want. I think pretty much everybody.
Have you not talked about it enough? No.
Yet.
All right. Well, there's plenty of time for that magnificent goal for the Cruise against Ballymena, where we are.
In terms of that, the Irish Cup and different things like that, you've done a lot of big, what would you say, big games, big atmospheres.
Yeah, domestically, I've been covering the Irish League for the same amount of time, and all the cup finals, all the big thriller showdowns. Morgan Day was there, you know, all the explosive ones. The last day of Crusaders winning at Ballymena again, the last gasp. Did international stuff for many, many years as well. Travelled with Northern Ireland, got to know the players. When I was younger, would have had a bit of fun with some of the players, as you could do back then. Was in France, Euro 2016 for the finals, Northern Ireland again. Wonderful experience. Wouldn't rush to do it again. No, very tiring. It's not all as glamorous as you think it is, you know, but I'm very lucky. Johnny, I love football. I've always loved football. First and foremost, playing football. And I was able to get a career where I could work in the arena that I enjoyed.
Good.
Mostly.
Well, speaking on that, obviously we want to go back. So we know that you're an incredible journalist. Beautiful writing skills, must I add. But also you've had a wee bit of a career. You've played, you've managed, you've done different things locally.
Amateur level, Johnny, you know, when I grew up, I was a good footballer when I was a kid in school. I got picked for Belfast schools, the trials, along with a player called Glenn Dunlop, a fantastic defender from the 90s. He and I went into the same trials. I got played as centre half. I was a centre midfielder. That was the end of things. Moving on. So there was no coaching. I joined Rosario for a while, and then 15 I discovered alcohol and nightlife and stuff like that. So I stopped playing. And then a friend of mine, when I was about 20, said, he says, right, you know, I was enjoying myself too much. He says, right, come here. You were a good footballer when you were young. Join my team. Joined a team called Lockview Star in the Dunmurry League. a gladiatorial ring every week. It was butchery at times.
Okay.
Really, really, really scary at times.
Men's football.
Proper, yeah. And you couldn't mess about. And then I got the job. I was a barman. I worked in the licensed industry when I left school. Barman, bar manager, Pardo Hotel, New Home Road, Errigal as well, the Garrick, Lavery's, and really enjoyed that. And then I went into, I just wanted a career, you know. I loved working in bars, but it's late nights, and I sort of said I want to sort of settle down and get myself a proper career. Applied to get on the journalism course for 3 years in a row. They let me in for persistence, and probably that alone. And I got some work experience working with the Sunday World newspaper, and then an opportunity came up, and I was in the right place at the right time. I was talking about being thrown into deep water. You know, it was hectic finding my feet and getting to know the lay of the land. And from a journalist point of view, what I did, Johnny, was I knocked my pan on going round grounds, you know, matches, meetings, whatever else, getting to know people, getting them to know me, trying to build up a bit of trust. And I was lucky actually because a couple of friends of mine, this is going back to players in the 90s, Johnny. One was from the Ormer Road, Tommy MacDonald, who played for Cliftonville Ards Linfield. And I would have said maybe the most successful footballer from the Ormer Road until your good self and Mark Sykes appeared on the scene.
I will just talk about Mark.
Well, Tommy was with Linfield and he knew me a lifetime because we played together at Rosario and grew up together. And he was like, Stevie's all right, you know, you can trust him. Trevor Smith, who was a Portadown and Glentoran striker, and he was sort of similar as well. He was saying that, listen, he's my mate and he's sound. He'll not let you down. And I don't think I've ever really let anybody down. I wouldn't do it, Johnny. You know, and that's how you have to work really hard as a journalist to build up trust. Absolutely. You know, for people to know that, you know, you can tell this guy certain things and he'll keep it shy if needs be, or he'll write it in a certain way, or, you know, usually hopefully reasonably.
Yeah.
And then, now actually, funny enough, when I got the job to cover the Irish League, that was about 96. So I then was also playing football in the Sunday League, right? And I don't know how much, you'll know a bit about it, but it came into being in 1994 and grew into something absolutely beautiful, in my opinion. It started out as like pub teams and stuff like that, actually. Yep. I played for the Royal Ascot up in Carryduff as it was. I remember there was a team called Belfast Lions because they all worked in the zoo.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Morrison's Bar had a team, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There was a team from Mashanka. They all worked for Charles Hurst, and then it grew into it was really well run. Gabe Devlin, now man, we both know, who was my manager at Lockview Star. He became a referee, got involved in the Sunday League, and brought in great discipline.
Yeah. And
it got really, really fantastic teams: Rushlight, Celtic, St Matthews. We became Bacca Seniors, which I thought was I love that name.
Yeah. I can remember the
Mona,
name,
Brook Villa, you know, Ladybrook, loads of teams.
One thing that people obviously have to realise is too, it just wasn't your typical Sunday League.
It was Irish League players.
You had a load of Irish League players at the time, because I remember jumping in certain games as well and thinking, Jesus Christ, I need to go to this. Because it was madness at times, because you were turning up half steaming.
Right, yeah.
You were trying to play, and then there's people taking it really serious.
It was very
competitive,
serious.
Really competitive. So, and I always remember going down. I remember seeing, don't know if you probably won't mind, but I always remember seeing Liam Boyce one morning. In the middle, it was like Ladybrook, and I remember seeing Fitzy as well. I was thinking, going like, Jesus, this is mental. I'm not doing this again.
Boyce played for Rushlight, and I thought they were like the Harlem Globetrotters of the Sunday League because they had Irish League players. Mark Jonty, Barry Johnson, played up against Mickey Collins, fierce warrior. They had so many. Then there were St Matt's. They were from the Strand, Short Strand. Fabulous team as well. They and Rushlight were the two big teams.
But it also makes it more competitive, more fun. Seeing those people at the weekends, they're probably playing on Saturday, went out with their mates on a Sunday, have a bit of a crack. And also it gives you a bit of experience too to see what they're actually at. Yeah,
it was a fantastic experience. And you're right, Johnny, a lot of people turned up hungover. Like, I ended up managing the team and it was mad. You know, you're trying to read, where is he and was he going to come and whatever.
Who's being sick at the side of the pitch, there's a wee bin somewhere.
Well, happened to me once or twice, I have to admit. But, it was taken very seriously. And it was very, very physical, as football was back then. But, in my opinion, there was an honour amongst thieves. You kind of knew what you could do and what you couldn't do. 50-50's no problem. But see if you went over the top. I mean, and the thing was, you're on a Parks pitch with two groups of lads. You could get trailed round the corner and butchered. You know, there was one time actually, there was a guy on an opposing team pulled out a machete in the changing room from his dressing room. Like, this is, this is an Ormo Park where you're sharing dressing rooms. Like, there's
everyone's next door.
28 guys in a wee room,
Yeah.
and this guy pulls out a machete. And it wasn't for us, actually. We just relegated his team, but it was for somebody else. But the Sunday League was fabulous. Stories. Half of Cliftonville were playing back then, and I remember Lawrence Stitt, he drove into Ormo Park one Sunday afternoon, about 1:15. Twin Keith Mulvanna, I played against him in the Demurray League. Keith Mulvanna, he was a good player. His brother Nicky as well. He jumped off the pitch, ran into the bushes, right? There was two wee lads kicking the ball. I said, "Mister, what are you?" He says, "Shush, there's my manager." And I think it was Fran Murphy was slow coming out. He was the Cliftonville manager, this is Lawrence, and he nabbed him at the door and said, "Right, you're done." Geordie McMullen, Geordie and I marked him when he was young, and what sort of a player he blossomed into.
Oh, fabulous.
But there was one match now, and the matches between us and St. Matt's were full-blooded. I respected them, but you never give in to them.
No.
The only team I ever got sent off against, that's another story.
And sent off for Sunday League's hard to do, to be honest.
Do you think so?
Well, it should be.
But Geordie, and I think on this occasion, he had been playing regular when he was a wee lad, but when he was getting better at Cliftonville, even he knew himself, I'm going to have to knock us. And he loved it. He loved playing with his mates. They were his friends. But he played this day, I think they were stuck St. Matt's, and he went up for a header. He was about 15 foot away from me. I'm managing at this stage. I'm on the sideline, and he went up for a header with one of our guys, Cavan, and the two of them clashed in the air. And honestly, the blood that poured, before they hit the ground, there was like somebody poured a bottle of red wine. And I saw them, honestly, Johnny, and I saw the two of them in Ormo, the pavilion there, sitting side by side, waiting for an ambulance. My man had 8 stitches, I think. Geordie got like 27.
And no teeth. He probably got the chewing gum in
his
that
teeth.
stage.
His teeth Heath were all right at that stage, actually. But no, it was like a lightning bolt right down his face. And he had stitches internally as well.
God.
So that was the end of him. But yeah, the Sunday League, there's so many tales about that. It was a fabulous, and I just love playing football. Johnny, I wasn't very good at it, really. But I loved it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too. Everyone said, that's your weekends, you're going out, whether you go out on a Saturday, everyone still comes together on a Sunday. It's a bit of fun. Do you know what I mean?
I'll be honest with you, when I played on a Saturday and it was like, the Murray League, I was very, very dedicated. I never drank on a Friday night. I always looked forward to football. You didn't want to let your teammates down. You know yourself, Johnny.
Yeah, you'll never do that.
When I went to the Sunday League, it was the 90s, and there was a lot of fun, a lot of partying going on, and a lot of new nightclubs, whatever else. So, no, I didn't sit in on a Saturday night from that stage at all. But, you get into a way of getting up and having a shower and sorting yourself out, and you get used to playing when you're half canned,
I get you. But then again, that also helps too from your journalistic side of things. If you're out, you're mingling with people, you've got friends who play the game at that level.
Okay.
It allows you to enter those circles, get in with people, as you say, build a wee bit of rapport with people, and then, as you say, most of the time, people end up trusting you.
I think people saw me as a football bloke, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, straight, not perfect, but just a sound football guy.
Yeah.
And I think there was so many Irish League players came through that Sunday League, and I was accused all the time of, did you squeal on me? I think Kieran Caldwell thought I did, and Aaron Smith, but I never did. I never ever did.
Now, it's one thing that I can say. I've met you a load of times, obviously, as I say. We became good friends over the last couple of years. We go for coffees, we enjoy ourselves, and as I say, I know I joked about the time off the record sort of thing, but I've told you a lot of things about Lauren, Crusaders, managers, getting on with people and not getting on with people. And not one ounce of it was ever released, like. And anything, as you say, not that I'm a big person at all, but you would think if somebody who's looking to get a wee scoop or a wee up, it would definitely be something that you'd be interested in doing.
Yeah, but you've got to be fair and you've got to be reasonable. It's not just gossip I'm interested in. I know, listen, I'm not being funny, the experience I have and the people I know in the game, you kind of know what's going on out and around the clubs, the good and the bad. But gossip, and it's not really where I'm at, really. It's and I always feel, Johnny, that you've got to be fair. You've got to be, criticism where criticism is due, and credit where credit is due, and you've got to be fair and proportional with both, in my opinion. Don't always get it right, Johnny, in the game. There have been a couple of 3 or 4 times where I've made a bit of a Ricky. Somebody has maybe rung me up and had it out with me, and I've put the hands up and said, "You're right," and I'll correct that.
Yeah.
That's the way I operate now. And a lot of people do come at me and give me a hard time, I'll fight my corner.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, the thing is, you're the one putting it out there. So, I mean, you obviously stand by what you're saying in the
You
end
have
of the
to.
day, and you've got some sort of credibility to the story to actually release it in the first place. So, surely trying to find that gap between, is it false, is it completely true? How would you weigh that up, though?
Well, I mean, there's obviously journalistic practices. You have to nurture sources. You have to speak to people who you trust, who you believe, and who have maybe a proven record of, being straight with you. And that's where it is. That's where it is for me in my life. It's just about being straight. So stories, you get a lot of talk back, and you get a lot of gossip and this and that. It's mad, the stuff you hear. You know yourself, like. And then if you really need to get a story, you'll speak to people in the know. You'll have to go to, if you're making, say, I don't know, you'll have to go to the person that you're talking with. Say I'm criticising the Irish FA for some reason, which I may have done once or twice. You have to go to them and say, this is my understanding of what is happening. Can you confirm or deny, or give us your take, or correct me if I'm wrong? You've always got to be fair. Not everybody out there is fair back, I have to say, Johnny. Not everybody. But most of the guys are good guys. And you stick with the straight guys. And there are plenty of them in the game.
Whenever you're talking about certain clubs and different things, obviously you're a fan of the Irish League. You would have a club yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of stuff recently about the league, the money coming in, the structure of the new league coming up. I mean, what's your opinions on all this going forward?
First of all, I'm a Crusaders man. I think it's... I think if you declare your hand as a journalist, and I think it's good that journalists have a club. Most of us do, because you're engaged in it and you have a passion for it. I have concerns about the league, but maybe and people always think, Johnny, oh, you don't like this club, or you don't like that club, or you don't like that club. And it's a bit like when you're playing football or even managing football. I mean, they're maybe your rivals, whatever, but you shake hands after the game.
Absolutely.
And respect them as trying to do what you're trying to do. Everybody's in football because they enjoy it. So, I do fear for some clubs. I think that the local scene has been overheating financially. I do have concerns about the financial sustainability in one or two areas, clubs. And now, in fairness to NIFL, they have recognised it, I think, with the IFA as well, and they've introduced financial compliance regulations, and that's slowly getting through, which is, this is a dry run this year. You get trials, and at the end of it, the association and NIFL will look at your finances and say, well, you're doing fine, you're on track, no problem there, or else you're overspending and you need to do something about it, because in 2 years' time, you're only going to be able to make a loss of 75 grand over the 2 years at every top flight club.
Right, okay.
Now, when you hear, Johnny,
75 grand's not a lot of money.
No, there are clubs.
Clubs absolutely throwing the money.
Hundreds of thousands they've lost, in a year. There's two clubs in particular, Larne and Glentoran. It's not a secret. Now they have benefactors who can throw the money in. If they're going to do that forever and a day, great, no problem. Are they going to do that with no return?
Yeah, well, even at the time when we were at Larne, it's just the likelihood of Larne being sustainable within the 5 years was always the goal. And I think Kenny obviously had a 5-year plan when we were there. He achieved that within 5 years, which is an incredible feat for anybody to come into a football club from where it was.
He's done brilliant.
But from where the club is now, sustainability just doesn't look like it's potentially going to be there.
Well, we don't know, in fairness, Johnny, and again, we've got to try and be fair. I mean, I'm not sure, I'm happy to be correct, I'm not sure the Larne model has proved it works. Most of the finance was going to come through, the return of the finance was from European money, prize money.
Yeah.
I think Larne were hoping to get into group stages more than once, and I think their aim was like Shamrock Rovers, to compete and get money.
Yeah.
And their other revenue stream was going to be selling players, young players, or Kofi Balmer, Craig Farquhar to Crystal Palace, which they've done. Yeah. And they've ticked both boxes.
They've done well too. The kids have actually sustainably stayed over, which is the big positive.
Yes, it is. So from a football point of view, yes, but from a financial point of view, they're not making money.
Yeah.
So, and that worries me. I know that Linfield are very keen on getting outside investment. Cliftonville are going to put it to their members as well, and I wouldn't be in favour of it, to be honest with you. it's very hard. There's not one size fits all. Like, for example, Coleraine, we've got a young investor, Henry Ross, has come in there, 24-year-old. And he, it's fair to say he's thrown chunks of money at it, You're a player, Johnny, you know what.
I wish I was still able to.
Well, you got it at Larne, let's be fair, you're right.
Well, one thing that we give the credit the likes of Kenny and Tiernan at the time, obviously we've all had our bits and pieces, but the money that people were on when I signed 3, 4, 5 years ago is nowhere near the money that's coming out now. And I think the money that people are even getting at Larne now are still nowhere near the likes of Coleraine at the moment.
No, well, Larne will first to raise the bar, splashed a bit of cash on Davy McDade, got him a good deal, whatever. That was to make a splash and attract players. And then Glentoran came along a couple of years later and they raised the bar again.
Aye.
They wanted to blow everybody out of the water financially, 100 grand for Shea McCartan and numerous other deals.
Now, don't get me wrong, I do realise that certain players are going to be on way more money than other players. You know what I mean? You pay for the standard. So
usually strikers get the most money.
Yes, and Larne have obviously paid maybe more for one person than they have the other, but even the money that Larne are paying at the minute, to give them credit, it's still miles off other clubs.
Only because other clubs,
the rumours.
Only because other clubs have streaked ahead of them in terms of finance.
But is that just stupidity?
Well, where does it end? But here's the thing: like, hypothetically, if you have a young investor or an older investor wants to go into the club and says, I'm going to put in 1.5 million of my money every year, and I do not expect a return of it financially. I want to see a return on the football field.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I am prepared to chunk up 1.5 million every year for the next 5 or 10 years. There's nothing to stop them doing it.
No. Well, no, there's not.
How you use that money now, they're talking about bringing in a bond scheme now to make sure that club owners have enough money to see them through so that they don't, and I'm not talking about anybody in Northern Ireland at all, but we've seen it in world football where in case the owner spits a dummy out, doesn't get his, everyone knows when first they say, I'm out of here. All these players have to get paid still.
Yeah.
So it can be done. If you've got a guy, wealthy benefactor, who's going to throw money in for a long period of time, you're all right. I have questions. As Kenny, signs are, he's already sold some of the club. What he's done is brilliant at Larne, can never be taken away. Fabulous journey.
No, it's an incredible feat for anyone.
Yeah, but I kind of think, and I think Kenny's plan was always right. Go in, put a lot of money into the club, in the infrastructure, which he did really, really well. He did the two, the players, good players like yourself, and the infrastructure, fabulous facilities. So that's there forever and a day. But I don't think his plan was ever, I want to be here
sustainably.
I think he wanted to get it to be able to wash its own face after 5, 6, 7, 8 years, which is absolutely reasonable. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's doing that at the minute. So it's different cases. Ali Poor at Glentoran. Now, he's a businessman. He had no affiliation to Glentoran at all when he came in. So you'd imagine he's looking coin back, but it's not happening there at the minute.
Yeah.
So there's different models, Johnny.
It is.
But Bear again. I'm sorry to interject, but Bear, the thing is, I think the time to do it, if you're going to do it, was 3, 4, 5 years ago,
100%.
Because then you'd have had a head start.
Yeah.
There are only 4 European places.
Yeah.
That's where you're at. Now, if you want investment now, like say Linfield and Cliftonville take on investment, they're going to be spending bigger dollar. But there's clubs going to be spending big money in salaries, but they're going to miss out on the European places where all the good money is.
Yeah.
That's why I have some concerns about sustainability.
So when we look at those, to say those top 5 now, so you've got the likes of Larne, Linfielder, Full-Time, Glens, Coleraine now. Crusaders were, obviously they're not anymore. Declan's brought them back down a wee bit, but those clubs ultimately are all fighting for that goal, and this year's slightly different, I think. But the likes of Dungannon have had an absolutely incredible season. Mm-hmm. More than likely than not, over the next 4 or 5 years, those clubs are going to slowly drop off. Because, let's be honest, if you're able to pay that much money for all the best players, those clubs at the bottom, those 5, 6, 7, there could be a big gap.
Well, yes, you're right, 100% right. But take it back a bit, and I discussed this a few years ago about the haves and the have-nots. And at that stage, it wasn't about investment, it was about the big European money coming in. It was such a jump that those clubs that were competing in Europe were getting, and Crusaders were big payers at one stage as well. Yeah. Probably about the time you were there, I would imagine. But like it's just I just don't know that it's sustainable at all, really. It's just too crowded a market, I think, now. And also, where are the full-time players going to come from? Oh, sorry, that was the haves and the have-nots. That's what I was going to say to you. But so I was discussing this, the haves and the have-nots, Johnny, and it was said to me by one person at a club, well, all right, but traditionally in the Irish League, it was the haves and the have-nots. It was Linfield and Glentoran and everybody else. Now you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe clubs. Is that better? Maybe not for Linfield and Glentoran.
No, probably not for the overall picture for those two, the big two, essentially. But in terms of everybody else competing, everyone's had a wee stint, I think. Crusaders obviously had a good run. Ballymena a few years ago, when David was there, they ended up second. So they had a good run. But this was, as you say, before the money really kicked in. But now that the money's kicked in and you're kind of looking at things going, is this the way the league's going to go? There was talk about an All-Ireland league to try and compete down there, but even that, there's a big difference in the League of Ireland still in terms of them. They've been doing this for a long, long time compared to us just starting off, and I still think that they're really far ahead of us.
Wasn't there a game there, was it Bows and Pats, it was 30,000 at?
30,000, yeah. That's incredible, eh?
Phenomenal. Shamrock are certainly with the European experience, they're way out in front. There was a big push, a clamour for it a few years ago. Oh, you're talking 5 years ago maybe, an All-Ireland League. Yeah. It faced an awful lot of opposition and it kind of withered on the vine. There was a hope that this would bring in finance.
Incredible investment too would have had to be set up. The
investment would have been there, but it was like they were talking about TV deals and stuff like that and also helping clubs prepare for Europe. Then there were problems, well, all right, well, whose season changes? Do we change the summer season? Some people are against that, some people are for that. And then some in the Irish League were saying, well, we want to change our season, but we want to still keep the Boxing Day games. Yeah. So then you're talking about
like money maker for the Irish League,
like a May to February sort of. So it never really got off the ground. Listen, it has to be said, though, that we just said the League of Ireland's in a healthy position.
Very healthy.
And the Irish League has been improving undoubtedly, Johnny, last 15 years for sure, in facilities, standards.
And that's ultimately still going to go in that trajectory. I think the investment that Lauren Kenny's put the stands in the stadium in, there's still big talk of them actually renovating it. Yeah. Crusaders have got money, which you've just talked about recently too. What is it, 2.5, 2.3 million?
Yeah, from the Level and Up Fund.
And it's going to potentially help them with a new stand, a new stadium.
There'll be facilities upgraded across the board. There's this fabled 36.2 million, it's now the Northern Ireland Football Fund to call it. Yeah. That's nowhere near enough, but the hope is that, right, the minister will say, right, well we've got 36 million here, right, who's interested, what have you got, what projects have you got, and the expectation is that he'll get a welter of responses, but clubs here, there and everywhere say, we need this, we need that. So I think what he'll do is he'll dish out the 36.2 million first to priority cases, if you want to say, or probably more accurately, the clubs who have scored best on the matrix system. Yeah. And then I would imagine the government, the minister will go to Stormont for more money that he says he needs. And then that'll bring in the GAA with Casement Park and whatever else, because,
it has to be shared.
You maybe look at getting 200 million for both Irish League and Casement Park at that stage.
Which is an insane amount of money too, when we consider it. But it's ultimately, if we're going to try and progress the league in a way to compete at any sort of real standard, if we want to do well in Europe, this money's essential.
It's essential, and I have to say, we've been neglected here, Johnny, in Northern Ireland, and I'll take you back a bit of a history lesson. There was the Hillsborough disaster, which I remember well. There was a judicial report brought into it. Long story short, every club in England, Scotland, Wales got, on average, £500,000 for safer stadia because of Hillsborough. And that was either interest-free loans, or you got it in the never. England, Scotland, Wales. Because Northern Ireland wasn't covered in that legislation, we never got that. Now that's gone back 25 years. Yep. Then Northern Ireland got its own administration, Stormont, so they could then get the money. But we haven't seen the money. So this is money that's 25 years overdue. I get the pressures on health and the way the world is at the minute and education, but it has to be fair.
Sport's a huge thing, and it's one of the biggest things that we can offer people around the world.
I would certainly agree.
And that's obviously not even football. That's talking boxing, anything, MMA.
I'm a big believer, Johnny, and like for young people, and it's great. It's happening. Get them into sport. Get them into sport, whatever it is, because playing sport is the best thing. I was a social animal when I was younger. Johnny smoked and drank like we all did when we were younger, but if I had my chance again, I would just play sport and do nothing else. Honestly, all different types of sports, squash, racquetball, which I played, tennis, snooker as well, but it's
Ping
not
pong.
so. Yeah, table tennis we played. Yeah, when we were young, we would play table tennis, darts, and snooker. That was the big things in the 80s.
That's probably where you got the darts from, being in there a couple of pints as a kid.
Well, indeed.
Littler and all that.
I actually won the Parador Classic one year. I was the best. I was the best snooker player on the Ormer Road for 1 year and 1 year only. And I'll tell you, actually, there's a wee bit of a giggle to it because I knew there was a bookie in the Parador, right? Lucky Jordan, friend of mine's father, and he would do the horses on the TV, whatever else, right? But this Parador Classic was a bit of fun. So there was bookies odds on who was favourite. Brendy Adamson from below the bridge, he was favourite, and I was like 25 to 1 because I wasn't really known at that stage. You know, I'd come from up the road.
It's not bad odds for you, Steve.
Well, I backed myself. I said I was 6 to 1 to win the group of 6 players. Okay. So there's a few of us had a right dig at it, and we got a right few quid out of it. The only thing is, I only lost one frame in the whole tournament. That's indulge me. And it was the man I said, the favourite, Brendy Adamson, who was the favourite. There was a right few quid on it for him. And I can't honestly, I still to this day, I don't know if he threw the match. I think Lucky got to him and said, you know, there's a few quid in it, let the kid win.
Well, here you won.
Did win.
That's the end of it.
Did all right. Yeah, the misspent youth.
The classic. Do you know what? We'll have to have a go. Do you know what I mean? We'll go back.
I still do. I've taken back snooker up again recently. Yeah, play over at Balmoral.
Nothing like it. I'd done the same now as a kid. My dad actually, he bought us a table. We put it in my granny's up in the loft, and it was only a small table. Like it was a wee 6 foot table, if even. But
and who were you? Who were you snooker heroes then? I don't know. You wouldn't remember Higgins and.
I just remember who was it? John Parrott had the glasses, didn't he?
No, Dennis Taylor had the glasses.
Taylor had the glasses, the big funky glasses.
My grandfather knew him well.
I don't know if I could get a pair of them.
Huh?
I think I could get a pair of them for a podcast, yeah.
I think you could. Or Elton John glasses, they would do you well. The really big ones. Yeah.
Suits the character.
It's for St. Patrick's Day.
Paddy's Day. No, who was there? I always remember running around saying Stephen Henry? Stephen
Henry, yeah.
Obviously, as a kid, you would pick your footballer before you went down on the street, and I think my dad used to let me be Stephen Henry.
Wasn't much crack out of Stephen Henry, sure there wasn't. Like.
No, he was a serious man. He was there to play snooker and just win.
But then Stephen Davis, who was his predecessor, the top man, and him with the red hair, I don't know if you remember him, like he was a robot. He was brilliant, and he was a robot. And then everybody thought he was a real boring guy because he was quiet and respectful. Turns out he was a DJ in the background. He was doing lots of clubs. Honest to God, yeah.
To be fair, when you look at snooker, it is very professional. Everything's quiet. You kind of go to a crucible, you sit there. I would go to the Odyssey sometimes. And
there's great fun, Johnny.
Jesus, you have a wee bag of Chris and the Chris packet records. Just everyone's shouting at you know.
But there's I worked at it a wee bit. I was over in the Crucible one year. I think it was 1998 or thereabouts, with Joe Swale, right, who's from the market.
From the market, yeah.
Yep, and a great fella. So myself, and I think John Lanahan went over. I know he's friends with him. We went over, and you can see the camaraderie, see the fun that they have, the snooker players themselves. Obviously not all of them get on with each other, but by and large, it's a very relaxed, very, very colourful environment to
enjoy themselves,
earn your living.
Ronnie certainly enjoyed himself over there.
Well, he stopped. I have to say, listen, I loved Ronnie. I bought his book there a few years ago, because I liked him. A bit of a rocket, bit of a
man, like
flawed man, a bit like myself, maybe Johnny, So I bought his book. I had to throw it away after, I don't know, it's all about running. Running.
Well, he done this thing, didn't he? Because he brought the TV programme out after. I remember watching, there was a documentary, and it was kind of about him and how he tries to stay focused. His mental health, obviously, over the years, deteriorated times.
I get it. That's his
way to
keeping the demons at bay. Yes, absolutely. And I applaud him for that. Do you ever try to read a book about running?
No. You ever try to run? I struggled with it. I've struggled with it for about 15 years. Go back that far and you think, right, time to get myself right. I need my career. I need this to go forward now. And I kind of wanted to be in sport. Why journalism? Like, what brought you to journalism?
When I was at school, I was a half-decent writer.
Right.
I thought I had some sort of... Well, I'll tell you the truth, Johnny. I was thinking about this and that, and I always had a hankering maybe to write or be a journalist. And back then, it was a very respectable, very, very respectable job. People looked up to journalists. They don't do that now.
No, it's completely changed. People trying to avoid them and stay against them and think they're out to get them.
The abuse that I get, Johnny, and threats. And
ultimately, it's probably deserved sometimes. I just thought it there, but I mean,
sometimes
I get
maybe.
You.
Yeah. Tell you what it was though. I was working in hospitality. At this stage, I think I was managing the Garrick Bar. The family that owned it were friends, and they owned the Power Door as well. And I really enjoyed the hospitality trade. Looking back, maybe more than I realised, because it's a fun environment. It can be dangerous as well now. Back then, no doorman or whatever else. But I sort of said, right, I want to get a career, sort of house out and just grow up, basically. Yeah. And I remember thinking, well, I know, someday it'll happen. And I just thought, I want to give it a go. I was a wee bit afraid. I was kind of shy when I was growing up, yeah.
It's a big decision to make, to be fair, when you consider you've enjoyed going out drinking, you've enjoyed partying, you're in the middle of a bar, you're having good crack, and then all of a sudden you're going to go writing the Telegraph or writing papers.
What I didn't want to do, Johnny, I remember thinking vividly at the time, I don't want to get the age of 40 or 50, which I am now, obviously, and look back and say, should you have had a go at that?
100%.
Even if you make a balls of it, excuse my language, well then it's not for you, and you can go and do something else.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to try it and see if I could do it, rather than not look back and wonder what if. And
I get where you're coming from, because in terms of me having the career playing football and then ultimately trying to do this, this is way outside my comfort zone. So this is me going, if I don't try this, it's something that I've always been interested in. You're always going to have that in the back of your head, just burning away, saying, you could have done that, you didn't.
Aye, but Johnny, you're a gift. You're a natural for it. You've got the film star looks, not easy way about you, whatnot,
like that Tom Cruise swagger in me.
Tom Cruise maybe going a bit too far now, John. I'm not too sure about that. I'll tell you a quick story if you don't mind. That combines the Ormer Road and journalism. Funny enough, going back to when I worked in the Power Door again. Sorry to be parochial, but that's where stories come from. I'm not going to say who. There was a journalist now, and a very respected journalist, for one of the daily newspapers in Northern Ireland. Not that well known. He's not famous or nothing like that, but he was.
No you.
Good. What?
He's no you.
No, I'm not. I don't want to be famous at all. Anyway, but when he finished his shift, as it happens in journalism, there's a lot of drink on the go, or people in the old days. It used to be, you'd meet people in bars. It used to be great, but so this man, he would have caroused around the city centre, right? Hit this bar, hit that bar, whatever else. Now, he lived up at Annandale, right, top of the Ormer Road. So then he would make a beeline as the day wore on or the night wore on. He would head up the Ormer Road and hit, obviously, Farrell's, you remember it. Maybe, he wouldn't maybe gone on to Farrell's, the Rose and Crown, let's say, and then he would come into the Errigal or the Power Door, and that was his last stop before going home, right? So he would be 3 seats to the wind, right? Right, really lovely man, very polite, very, very, very well mannered, very quiet, just loved his gargle, right? But then we found out later on that he had a routine. There was a Chinese takeaway up there at Annandale, right? And that was always when he got full, he would call in there, right, and get his Chinese and go home to his apartment, and that's lights out the next morning. Unfortunately, he got so gargled, Johnny, they couldn't understand him.
Right.
They couldn't make him out at all, right? But he was such a good customer. Do you know what they did for him? They got laminated cards of his top 10 dishes, right? So when he staggered in steaming and he couldn't speak, he would just take out the cards and pick out the one he wanted and slide it across the counter, get his carry out and away home. Genius, really.
Here, do you know what? If you're dedicated enough,
that's commitment.
That is. Mm-hmm. You're only getting that if you're a top customer. Like.
Absolutely, yeah. Lovely man.
Good, I'm sure. When we go back, I want to touch back on the money situation in the Irish League and what's potentially going to be coming. And you mentioned there that 36.2 million. Right? There's a lot of clubs and there's a new structure. For people who don't know, the new structure is coming in next year. Obviously, you maybe know about it, this pyramid scheme that's coming in. And it's going to be breaking down. It's kind of going to be like England, say. They're going to have the Premiership, Championship, and then into your sort of like conferences and your whatever.
Are you talking about funding now?
Well, this money's obviously going to have to be split. Surely there's going to be clubs at the bottom end of that spectrum that's going to be hoping to receive this sort of money.
Of course, and probably need it. There's going to be a bun fight. There's going to be a squealing match, Johnny.
But is this an application process? Is people just going to have to put it in and say, listen, I'm at, I don't know, an intermediate club, the likes of maybe like a 1.2 went down there. They're going to have to put in for this money, and even the clubs below that.
Like, well, it depends. I mean, if they can make,
is it a
good argument?
Criteria side of things too? Is it
very much so?
You need to have a ground. You need to have a space. You need to be able to prove that.
Yeah, and there's other things like you've also got to, if you can prove that you've handled funding money before and spent it well. Okay. There's a whole different. They're quite strict in this now. This matrices or matrix that they're using, and it's those teams that get the right points. But for talk's sakes, like I don't know. You mentioned Warren Point there as an example. Yeah. say Warren Point have a project that maybe they only need 80 grand for, or 90 grand. You know, I think it'll be the bigger clubs, with all due respect to Warren Point, will have bigger plans.
Yeah.
Derry City, the Glens, obviously, everybody has their own plans. So I don't think, I think if clubs lower down the pyramid, as you say, Johnny, if they make a fair case for wanting money and it's not ludicrous.
Yeah, it'll be fairly up for grabs.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. That's what I'm told so far, because, you know, there is always, I mean, in football.
Well, I'm sure that everyone's going to want a piece of the money, do you know what I mean? Because obviously people have their own plans, whether you're an amateur league club wanting to progress yourself, or get an Astro or a 3G in that's potentially going to help the community. They're going to be looking at money equally as much as anyone at Crusaders, Larne, Linfield, anyone. Yeah,
very much so, yeah. There is a different tranche of funding actually for artificial surfaces, Johnny, from the Department of Culture, Media and Sport in Westminster.
Okay.
And a lot of clubs that you're talking about, your amateur league clubs and whatnot, intermediate, if they're looking for, they want a new pitch, a 3G pitch, they can apply to that for it. I don't know how much it is at the minute.
But there's some.
The people that are handling the money aren't too forthcoming in letting me know how much there is to apply for. But listen, funding is a big thing.
Huge.
In modern life, and certainly in Northern Ireland modern life. And my own club, Crusaders, are particularly good at sourcing grant funding and particularly good at doing a proper case. Right? Now, they spent money on it.
Yep.
That's how they got the Levelling Up Fund. They took on the UK government, who knocked them back first time.
Seen that. It was more of a court case that they won.
They were threatening a court case, yes, which they had the right to do, and the mouse had roared. You know, they got what they wanted, really, because they were prepared to stand and fight for the right thing. So I think that is where clubs need to look at if they want to. You really need to get somebody in these days who is a wizard with the grant system.
Paying the right people to
pay somebody to come in. I mean, you pay somebody whatever, I don't know, 50, 60 grand to get you $250,000 of funding in.
It's worth it.
You know, and also that person will maybe be, you know, proficient with the rules and whatnot, so you maybe see less administrative errors, Johnny. And we've got to bear in mind as well, Johnny, like, we love the Irish, we love our football, we love the Irish League, we love the clubs. It's hard to get all, like, you're relying on a lot of people for, you know, volunteer, their time. Yeah. You know, the people who are on the committees and the boards, they spend an awful lot of time, you know, going to meetings and getting to know the rules and whatever else. And you really need, if you want to be a successful club, I think you've got to have a good, strong board, capable board. You've got to have a connection around your club so that you have a lot of volunteers that'll swing in right behind you, and you've got to match that on the field of play as well, so there's togetherness. Not everybody's big enough to get those people, the hands that need, you know, the bodies that are needed to do the work around the clubs.
So when you look at certain clubs and you look at the likes of Crusaders, who do have a good board, and I've been there, I've been at the club. It's a great club to be at. It's got a good structure to it. The fan base at certain times can be great, and at other times it can dwindle. Mm-hmm. The same as most clubs, to be fair, when you're going well or you're not going well. But for clubs having a decent board who actually know what they're doing, that's massive.
Yeah, not only that, Johnny, but I mean, you've got normal human relationships. You know, running a football club isn't easy, and people fall out or people get, you know, it's how you manage people.
Yeah,
it's always about how you manage people. You make it a welcoming place where, you know, like, you know, and also people, sponsors, you know, you bring them in, shake their hand, make them feel part of it.
Well, you have to, because if you don't, your money's gone.
But
your money's gone then.
It's an amazing amount of people, I think, Johnny, in Northern Ireland, who will sponsor things for the fun of it. Yeah. You know, if they're coming along and being taken inside and have a couple of drinks, tell them a couple of stories, you know, whatever.
There's a lot of
give
people
them a good day
who just love to be involved in football. But there's also a lot of people in the country who do have money. And not to be a blunt side of things here, but there's a lot of rich people in Northern Ireland who are interested in sport and doing certain things. And obviously there's agendas aside. Some people do it for the love of it, and some people do it just ultimately to promote the business. And that's a certain part of it that has to be looked at too.
There have been benefactors at clubs over the years, Portadown, Glenavon, Coleraine. Most clubs at some stage will have somebody come along and throw a few quid in. How long can you keep doing that? You know, you can't do it forever and a day. That's the long and the short of it. But there's other sources of income you can get out there. You know, you've got to make your clubs focal points. You got to, if you can, Make it a social place as well. Get events going.
100%. Well, that's what Crusaders actually done well. I know they had a few raves there on the pitch.
They did,
a few years ago, I remember.
Shorefest.
Shorefest. Did you know what? It ended up doing quite well, but the only problem is you had the pitch covered and people were standing all over it with these black mats, and is that going to cost you money in the end of the day?
I don't think it. I think it was an earner that now. You know, I mean,
I'm sure it was.
And like, this is what you've got to do. Really, you've got to.
Well, everybody else in England are designing pitches. I know we can't design pitches at that magnitude, but at the same time, if you can make something of your pitch or use it for something on the off season, why not get the money out?
Well, you tell me, by the way, while I've got you on, I'll return it. You tell me about the pitches.
What, playing on them?
Yeah, tell me what they're like. And what about the 3G surfaces?
I think it's coming along better now. Some pitches obviously aren't great. Some pitches are. Ballymena at the minute, which we've seen, is in a bad nick. You know what I mean? It's not remotely looked after in a way that it should be. Obviously, these things ultimately cost money, and it's a council pitch, so it's probably more up to the council to provide that level of standard that you want the pitch to be at. But come the start of the season, it's one of the best pitches in the league. Everybody wants ultimately to play in grass, but if you can't maintain it, it's not worth it. And this is where your 3G and your 4G comes in. Clubs can make money off it. Clubs can rent it to other clubs. There's maybe people using it alternate weeks and paying you big money for it, and then you're getting sponsors out of it. And I think that's probably where the league's more than likely going to go. If everyone can probably go 3G, I think that they probably will. Most people are, and I know Windsor obviously he'll probably never be that. But as a player, you want it to be grass. I think if you can get a good grass pitch that's flat, enjoyable to play on, it's probably nothing better. But
where have you enjoyed playing? Where's your favourite place to play?
I enjoy playing at the showgrounds. I'm not just saying that because I'm
Ballymena showgrounds.
Yeah, I'm not just saying that because I've been there. I enjoy grass. I kind of grew up in a period of time where I enjoy tackling people, and I've hurt my fair share of people, and I've also been on the other end of it. But you take it as it comes, and to be able to slide tackle and not rip the legs off you with burns and different things like that is probably more of a plus than a negative. Do you know what I mean? But
what about Stangmore before it was relayed?
I enjoyed being at Dungannon. Dungannon a good pitch. But even not that now, the 3G they have down there is super. It's good, and it suits them. They can play football down there. They've done really well this season, as we spoke about at the start. I think what Rodney's done and the players he's brought in, they're all ball players. They all try and play football. Sure. And that's the way he's been for a long, long time. And it's kind of good for him to see it actually pay off. Do you know what I mean? They're challenging. They're potentially going to go for Europe here. Hopefully they can hang on in those sort of top 3, top 4 spaces. But they've obviously dropped off quite recently. But the pitch is brilliant. And as I say, it's probably an earner for them. Do you know what I mean? And the clubs need that boost.
I think it's not so much what you make by renting it out to other associations or bodies, although there's a big need for it. It's what you save now. It's what you save and paying for all your teams, from the seniors right down to the girls and the underage teams. They don't have to spend money hiring a pitch somewhere else. That saves a lot of money for clubs.
Yeah, ultimately that is a big thing. They have somewhere to put their whole academy, which is obviously you're not worried about people going out. The kids aren't going to be stuck in muddy and different things like that, where I know back in the day that was just natural. But when you get a certain standard and you're used to these pitches, it's very easy to play on, and you know it's flat, its surface is there, you know there's no bumps or bubbles, and you're not running around thinking the surface is crap a day or whatever. You know what you're getting. So if you're a ball playing team, you can play on it, and if you're a Route 1 team, you know what you're doing too. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think whenever it's potentially a mud bath, like certain clubs have at the minute, it's not great. Most people probably put off by it. I know Ballymena are struggling with it. It's just one of those things at the minute. But yeah, it's probably better to have the 3G, I think. But then again, they get outdated every 5 years. They
have to be replaced. 8 years usually, I think. Used to be.
And
10.
then again, if you're getting into Europe and the standard's not right, that could cost you. So that's something that you have to be aware of. Don't you? You can't.
Lauren couldn't play at Inver Park when they first qualified.
Exactly. So this is one thing you got to look at, and one of the big things when we were at Larne was having Champions League or Europa League at Inver, and that was something that we wanted for the fans at the time, and you ultimately never got it. But then they did end up getting it, which was great, and they've continued to be there for the last couple of years, and obviously progressed to the group stages, which is phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? And they've had these incredible games. Looks really good for the club, but as I say, every 7-8 years you're going to have to look at ripping the pitch up and moving it. The only thing is they have places to move it, so they have the cliff. They can use that. True. Their academy goes and uses it, and they've got something. Do you know what I mean? So it is a good plan down there. Like there is a good.
Can I ask you something? Have dressing rooms changed since you started playing football in terms of, Like the game has sort of changed now in terms of it's all about technical ability and passing and possession, which I think is nonsense. I think if you've got the best team like Pep has or Liverpool have, you can do it. But if you don't have the best players, forget about it. The amount of mistakes you see being made at the back, playing it out from the back, it just, of my vantage, Johnny, it's like nails on a blackboard.
You'd rather scratch them down, yeah.
But can players still take a good crunch and tackle? Is that still part of the game?
I don't know. Well, going after 3 weeks ago, I mean, I just hobbled up, got on a stretcher, and my knee was hanging off. Do you know what I mean? So I think people can. My side of things isn't that it's nothing to do with the style of play or the way football is. It's more along how the game's developed and referees are able to referee the game. I enjoy tackling people. I enjoy not hurting people as such. That's probably a bad way to say it, but I don't mind being hit a hard challenge. And I respect people for doing it. Yeah. And ultimately, I don't go out there to hurt anyone. But at the same time, I always wanted them to feel it. Do you know what I mean? Whether that be somebody elbowing me in the back of the head or clash of heads or me kicking somebody or whatever it is. It's all part of the game. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's very quickly getting away from that. And referees are obviously coming to the same side of things now where they're struggling with it. What is a foul? What's not a foul? That's soft. That's not soft. Should it be a penalty? Did the keeper get touched? Is it good? Do you know what I mean? So
many opaque areas these days.
Who's
the hardest player you played against? Or played against you?
Hardest player. Do you know what who always gave me a good run was Stephen Douglas, who is another absolute rocket. Stephen used to kick the life out of me at Balmain.
He's a man to do it.
He was. And do you know what? To be fair to him, he took it back.
Did he?
Oh, took it back. And as soon as he walked up the pitch, he shook your hand and had a pint with me.
Oh, you have to.
Which is the way things should be.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? But we still laugh about it now. We were actually at David Jeffrey's dad's funeral. We actually met up with each other, and all the boys ended up turning up and good crack, few drinks had, and everybody's in cracking. It always gets brought up. You know what I mean? Like you always kick the knife out of each other, but nothing but respect for each other at the same time. But
it's the way it should be.
Stephen was brilliant. Stephen was a tough guy. Played till he was 41, some career. I'll not be doing that, let me tell you, but incredible. Some people just need to learn how to leave it when they're.
I know you got to play as long as you can. Johnny, you got to play as long as you can.
I don't know.
Oh man!
But Dougie was brilliant. He right into he was 40, 41. He was still flying. He's still fit, still ready to go. And
I still had a few pints every Friday night.
Still enjoyed himself.
I told David Jeffrey when he was at Linfield, he says, "I'll not be changing."
Nope.
You know, but he could do it. He could deliver.
The thing is too, I think that you have to look at players and think, if he's doing that for you every week and he's delivering for you every week, why would you change it from the potential not be?
Of course not. What a wire.
A wee pint or two probably give him that wee calm and edge.
It's worked for him. He was able to go and play the next day. You wouldn't encourage it for everybody, but...
No, I can't say I did that now. Maybe once or twice in my career, but not...
you kept it till you got 3 weeks in Bali or Thailand at the end of the close season.
I enjoyed the summer, everybody knew that. As soon as we finished on the Saturday...
Not just 1 week, Johnny, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
It was always 3 or 4.
Oh, 4 maybe, yeah.
It was always 3 or 4. There's no point in going that far if you're going to come back.
I agree. Be good to yourself.
And to be fair, you have a long, as you say at the start, it's a long season. You know, it's like it can get on top of you, and depending on how the season goes, you could be up there, you could be competing, or you could be down there competing and stay up, and it drains you. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if you ever become a manager, you really see what that's like. Then, like managing a wonderful group of Rockets today, good players too. 2 of them signed for Glentoran. Right. Jay Flynn played for me actually. You know, he managed. Played for Cliftonville.
Jared was a super talented footballer.
He's brilliant even at that. Well, he was getting older and I was worried. Like it was a physical league and Jerry was a fancy Dan player, but he was absolutely superb.
The serious left foot, didn't he?
It was could open a can of beans that left foot.
It was unbelievable. I always remember playing with Jared as a kid, and he used to do a thing called the Flynn spin. He had this move he used to do. I don't know what he was doing. I think he just fell over himself most of the time, but it looked the part. Like
he's a good player, very cultured player.
Very good. Could definitely have played at a higher level too.
But what I was going to say, like, if end of the season, you know, and very often, particularly in management, and playing's easy. See, when you're playing, you have to only worry about getting one person to the pitch in a good condition. When you're managing, you have to worry about 18 or 20.
But you didn't worry about getting yourself there in a good condition, so.
Well, I did mostly now, you know. I was a seasoned campaigner. But end of the season, you get frustrated. I've done doing that. What am I doing standing on the sideline
on a Sunday morning?
And there was one stage where one of the boys brought his dog. You know, I'm the manager. I have one flag in one hand and a dog on the other on the sideline. And you're playing growlers like Rushlight, Celtic or St. Matt's. Yeah. Like your street cred disappears.
You gotta let the dog off a lead there. Go get him.
It was a poodle.
Somebody's running one-on-one. The dog tackles him.
But then you get the buzz back in after a few weeks break, Johnny. You're like, right. You know, and it's about seeing the boys as well, seeing your teammates. Like,
that's one of the biggest things, and I think anybody who's in football knows what football's like.
Yeah.
A changing room in football, there's no place like a changing room in football.
No.
And you try to recreate it in different places, and if anybody out there who can recreate a football changing room in a business or anything like that, fair play to you, because you've cracked it, because there's nothing quite like it.
And they're friends for life, I find, because I'm older than you, Johnny, obviously. Me and the Baca Senior, me and the Baca Senior boys, it was 20 years last year since we went through, it was the second division then, it was my first 4 years manager, unbeaten throughout the league, the campaign, same year as Wenger. So at our level, it's kind of special. Right?
Yeah, the Arsenal of the Sunday League. The Arsenal
they are. Well, we were in the we got up into the first tier from there and did quite well, but but we had a 20-year anniversary sort of meeting up. I say, as soon as you walk in, Johnny, you'll be the same further in line. What about you? There's no airs or graces. There's just straight in. There'll be some rocket that'll be slagging you, about your shirt or something like that. And
great shirt, by the way.
That's just all
about it. Sunset there, later we'll see that absolute beaut that you have on.
I like a bit of colour, Johnny.
You got that in Portugal or something.
I didn't. I got it here in Belfast, yeah. I don't mind.
Brilliant, I love it. No, so going back, we've obviously talked about a lot of things. Okay, talked about the money aspect of football. We've had a bit of crack in between. We've talked about you as a journalist. Ultimately, what do you think the league's going to look like in the next 5 years? As a journalist, do you think that you're going to have the same rapport built up? Because I know a lot of the managers now, who likes your Stephen Baxter's, the likes of the older sort of characters, are starting to move away from the side again. I know Stephen's still a Carrick, obviously, but probably in a few years Stephen won't be a Carrick, and there was a good chance he was probably never going to go back into management there. Those characters are now going to disappear out of the league who actually brought something. I ultimately think they had this charisma, this sort of aura around them where people seen it and be like, that's Stephen Baxter and he's talking, or that's David Jeffrey and he's talking. This new wave of younger talented managers, the likes of Paddy McLaughlin, who's been around for a while, Declan Cadell, how do you think they're going to fare in the next couple of years?
Well, if you're asking me about those two guys in particular, I mean, Paddy McLaughlin, what he's done since he arrived at Glenavon, nothing short of phenomenal.
Incredible.
He's a great manager, Paddy, great fella. So he, I don't know, I mean, in terms of managers, Declan Cadell's done he's had a very, very good season in my opinion. His recruitment has been pretty good.
He's also faced a lot of different things in terms of the money aspect of Cruz.
The money's not as good.
Was there beforehand, and the job he's doing now he has to be.
Stephen had to start with nothing, but he got himself in a position where he had money to spend. He spent, bought big players in. Declan doesn't have it now. They're not skint Crusaders,
No, but it's more of a rebuild sort of stage for Declan.
Yeah, it's younger profile of players and whatnot. But you're talking about characters, and you mentioned Stephen Baxter. I'm of an age where I can remember, obviously Roy Coyle's a good friend of mine.
Yep.
Ronnie McFall, Marty Quinn, what a character, unbelievable guy. I could tell you stories about me and him all day. But you always get characters. People sort of always say to me, there's no characters in the game anymore. And I say, I don't agree, Johnny.
Yeah.
Because human nature is human nature. Sean O'Neill not a character here at Ballymena.
Sean O'Neill's not managing.
No, but I mean, I'm talking about characters every generation.
Sean O'Neill's an absolute rocket. Yes, let's not diss the fact that Sean O'Neill's not a quiet fella at all. To anyone who doesn't know Sean O'Neill, Sean's got an incredible personality. Yes.
Oh, aye.
And yes, will always be a massive character in the changing room, and he's one of the best people to have in your changing room as a leader, and also somebody who is incredible at organising a night out. Incredible at organising a night out.
He's a good fella.
He's a good guy that way.
Yeah, were you in Portugal when I joined the boys? No, you weren't. When we won the league, I went over and joined the boys, and Sean wasn't the year he did. No, the Al Pacino he did. Remember on the video?
Oh yes, yeah.
But he's just clown is not right at all. He's very serious about what he does. He likes clowning about, and so do I. He's good crack. He's good fun. He's a character, and that's a great thing to have in a dressing room.
It is. As I say, he's brilliant. He's our captain at the minute. I've been with him now twice. We've with him at the cruise. And then ultimately now at Ballymena, and He's incredible. Some of the nights out, some of the jokes.
That's what you want.
That's
Listen,
what you need.
you know, I come from an amateur background, Johnny, where it's like part of the strength of the team is the fun that you have in the pub afterwards.
You need it.
Like
That
you know,
camaraderie brings you together, too.
when I'm a manager or player for a club, it's not a big club. How do you attract players? You don't have the prestige, but you have fun, spirit, good crack, and that counts for a lot.
It does. I think that ultimately helps you win a league, too. I know definitely for sure those times at Cliftonville when we were there coming up as a kid.
There was a bit of fun at Cliftonville, wasn't there?
The drinking atmosphere at Cliftonville at the time was incredible, but that had everybody in. There was nobody that kind of... You never played a game and everybody went home. Everybody went to the bar, had a drink, had a bit of crack with each other. And I was only a young kid at the time sitting on the bench, so you were kind of witnessing all this, and I enjoyed a few drinks as a kid too, but nothing to that extent. But
that was Tommy Breslin, wasn't it?
That made that team click.
Tommy Breslin
they fought for each other.
It's fun. It's got to be fun. It's only football. It's only a game of football.
And ultimately too, he knew how to manage everybody, which was one of the biggest part. He may not have been technically as gifted as everybody else. I didn't really see that side of him. Maybe he was, but I know him and Minto had a good set.
Him and Minto and Skin and the characters in the game.
And even at the team that they were able to build around, as you talked about George McMullen earlier. George is technically one of the best players that anyone's played with. He was fabulous, and he probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves, but anybody who's played with him would ultimately know George was a touch of class.
When you played against him, you know as well. And he's cute, and he can look after himself as well.
Luckily I didn't have to.
He can look after himself, George. Great fella, and we're very, very good friends, but no quarter asked or given. I mean, he was cute. He would sort of... He did it too, did he do it? He did it like it... I can't remember one of the Crusaders players. Was it Beaver, maybe? By one of the Derby games? I mean, sort of just getting him done, you know. Nobody saw it. Beaver reacted and got sent off. So he knew the jigs were really shorty.
And he had that calmness too. That winning penalty against Linfield that day to win the league was... That's
that
a moment.
Photograph, iconic, isn't it?
That's a moment that Cliftonville fans will never forget.
Oh, wow. But then the boys went to the lash, and then they blew their chances in the cup final, didn't they?
Actually, we don't need to talk about that. Won the league, didn't we?
Indeed. Never be forgotten.
One last thing that I want to speak to you about is it's not sort of controversial or controversy, but you've obviously wrote some articles over the years. Mm-hmm. What was the sort of worst backlash that you may have received for an article?
Sometimes it's not actually what I write.
Right.
It's I remember, goodness, I worked for the Sunday World for 23 years. Sunday World is what it is. I remember there was a game. It was Linfield fans. Anyway, there was a lot of Linfield fans for a game. I think it was at Cliftonville, and they came back through the town, and somebody was stabbed. Somebody got stabbed in the knife in King Street, right, in one of the pubs. Now, there was a lot of talk at the time that they were all the men in black. There was about 30 or 40 guys all wearing black and hoods and whatever else. I don't know, right? But anyway, the next day in the paper, the Sunday World, one of the guys wrote, Fenian hating Linfield fans ran amok, and and I can kind of understand literally why it was written like that, because it was to distinguish between ordinary decent Linfield fans and the hoodlums, right? But this sent to Linfield fans bananas, and I took an awful lot of stick about that myself. I took an awful lot of stick at Linfield. Some people wanted me banned. That was a bad one, even though I didn't write it myself. Other stories I've told you privately. I got put out, shot out of my house in East Belfast in 2002. Death threat 11 years later from prescribed organisations. Story that I would probably, from a football point of view, backlash, I don't know. The Irish FA aren't too keen with me at the minute to ban me from their council meetings last year.
Okay.
Just for
being you.
Just for being me, just for being a journalist.
Somebody has to ask these questions. Do you know what I mean?
They don't listen. They don't. They hide behind. They don't. The head honchos don't do interviews. There's no accountability. I'm passionate about local football, particularly for fans as well, because I am one myself. I want to see football run properly, right? So,
and it's getting to a stage now after that League Cup final that we see that clubs can fill that stadium. Mm-hmm. And something that's like the League Cup was never a big cup.
No.
Never a massive cup at all, and it would never have had anywhere close to the numbers it got there. So the league's going in the right way. So something that is improving. But as you say, the right questions still need to be answered.
Well, NIFL and the IFA are two different bodies now, and one, in my opinion, is certainly more accountable than the other.
Yeah.
Johnny, I have to stress, believe it or not, there's no me, oh, look at me, I'm going up and asking the Chief Executive of the Irish FA difficult questions. It's not about me at all. In fact, I don't like all that carry on. I like a quiet life,
Okay.
But it's being straight. No, listen, I'm very gregarious when I'm in a social environment with people, but generally, I like to keep my head down. So it's just a feeling.
You're there to do a job.
I'm there to do a job. So they banned me for 2. They couldn't answer why they banned me properly, but...
Do you want to appeal that? You appeal that, yeah.
No, I didn't. I'll be honest with you, Johnny, and I'll be very honest with you. I've been going to those council meetings for a long, long time. Like you'd really need, a keg of free beer in the corner there, and maybe a good-looking model or something in the other corner to make it anyway appealing. It is so boring and dull.
Right, okay.
And I just went, you know what? See you in the Beano.
You're happy enough?
I just not gone back.
You've been back for all those years. You should have done that a couple of years ago then.
I would have sort of thought it was part of doing the job. If you're part of the fabric, it's you're sort of not duty bound, but to go along and whatever else. But as I'm getting older, Johnny, it's an absolute waste of time.
Fair.
There's no accountability or whatever. It's all a backslapping, carry on. Like honestly, it's and people say about these people doing well. Remember the IFA president, David Martin. It wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but he got a job, FIFA vice president, 300 grand a year, or whatever. They got, and people were like, oh, he's, how did he get it, whatever else. That man had for 40 years, he had to go to those sort of boring meetings 3 and 4 nights a week. Right. Can you imagine doing that, Johnny?
I'm about to say here, you nearly got yourself a job in the IFA.
Once days I did think about it, but no chance, couldn't. No chance, Johnny, no. And I have to be honest with you, football can be dirty. Football can be, I don't know how long you want to stay in football for, because as Roy Coyle always said to me, he said, Stephen, the game will never hurt you. It's the people in the game who will hurt you.
Yeah, fair. Touching on the last thing I want to speak to you about, you're now doing a freelance.
I am. I was made redundant 6 years ago this week.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel? How is it?
Listen, being made redundant, and I think I was 51 at that stage or something like that. It's not pleasant.
Nope.
The newspaper industry has been under pressure with the internet. Everybody knows that. Although there was a release from me leaving that newspaper, and the freedom came with it, but a very, very uncertain future, Johnny. Like you're literally thinking, am I going to lose the house? Where am I going to get work now? Nobody wants to employ anybody over 50. I tried to get on it, did a bit of teaching, didn't work out for different reasons, none of mine, I have to say. And I've been freelancing since. It has been, there have been times when you're wondering, should I just sling this and do something else? Yeah. But it's worked out well for me. In hindsight, I got a payoff, I got a redundancy fee, which helped, generous.
Yeah.
And I've been getting plenty of work since, for various newspapers, and I can't complain.
It seems to be quite consistent, the work with different people.
It is, Johnny, yes, but you never know what's around the corner.
No, ultimately.
Like you don't. At the time, my father had an accident. I was caring for my father, and he lost his leg. He had a blood clot, and he had to have a leg amputated. And he was in hospital. He'd only just got out of hospital after 4 months, and I was taken into the office 3 weeks later and told, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
So, looking after my dad, and I wasn't allowed to work for 3 months because of the package. So, huge amount of anxiety then. Huge amount, I have to say.
Just sitting around watching,
going around. You're thinking, what am I going to do? What can I do? And funny enough, actually, and I'm too old now, but I would have liked to go back into the hospitality game, Johnny. Believe it or believe it not. But I spoke to a mate of mine, this is where I am. He owns a very good restaurant, Ginger, in town.
That's the bistro, isn't it?
That is.
I've heard good reports there.
Go there. Simon McCann, he's my mate. He owns it and he's a chef. Fabulous guy. I would recommend it.
Good. Simon will be down.
Yeah.
Meals for free, obviously.
Good luck with that. Things have changed since I worked in bars and whatever else, But no, things are okay. I can't complain.
Good.
I would still probably like to get out of journalism, believe it or believe it not.
Okay.
I've done a couple of wee creative things myself. I've written a short film.
Amazing.
Well, it's amazing if it gets off the ground, gets made, but we'll see.
And what's that about, if you don't mind me asking? Or are we keeping that?
No, it's about a journalist getting shot out of their house. Basically, it's autobiographical.
Okay.
It's a bit more to it than that. It's a bit more nuanced, Johnny. You know,
You could probably play yourself.
I would play the old barman. You know, it was 20 plus years ago.
The coffee barista.
And I wrote a play a few years ago because I'm good friends with a friend of mine who drank in a parlour when I worked there, Owen McCafferty,
Right.
who's probably, I think, Northern Ireland's best playwright at the minute. He's done a lot of, he did that one about Stormont there. He did a show agreement, right? So he's a friend of mine, and he's a very successful playwright, and he's a bit of a rocket, like, he's good on the road. He's had Balfour Street, I think, actually, originally. Balfour Avenue. So I wrote this play, sweated blood and tears, Johnny, right? Tried my heart out, and I brought it up to Owen to show it to him. I said, Owen, would you give me? And he said it was
Right, okay, fair enough.
So that was the end of that.
Well, do you know what? After this conversation, I'm glad to see you happy.
You've got to be happy,
I'm glad to see you trying new things as well. As I say, this is something that we all have to do. Do you know what I mean? And it's very interesting to see where you've came from, to what you're potentially looking to do. And I'm all for it, to be honest. I love the idea of you potentially being in films or starring in potentially what may be your own.
No, I
Sort of
wouldn't
short
know,
film.
not acting. No.
Do you know what I mean? But
No.
here, you never know. It might come up, and I really hope it does, to be honest.
If it does, I give it a go, Johnny, because I believe it like yourself. Give it a go in life. What's the worst thing that happen?
Well, here,
Doesn't
you know
work.
What? If it does happen, and there's like this sort of Brad Pitt character
Yeah.
that you need, you know where to come.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Johnny.
'cause you have-
Yeah.
I've got that. Right?
Yeah, the man with so many mirrors in his house, huh?
Thank you for coming in. It's been an absolute
My pleasure. My pleasure, Johnny.
I have to say, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, mate.
Pleasure.
And yes, I'll get a good chat with you soon.
Wish you well with the rehab, mate.
Thank you very much. Guys, that's us. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We look forward to seeing you next week when we have a new guest who is in the game and a manager. Can you guess who it is?